Good afternoon. Today is July 13th, 2022, and this is the Oklahoma City Board of Appeals. Would you like to call roll?
All right, we have quorum.
Thank you. So, since this is our first meeting, we have election of officers. So, do we have a motion for board chair?
I would nominate Kyle for board chair. Second.
Okay, so Ron and Jim.
Ron and Jim. So we have a motion and a second. You want to call a vote?
Okay. Ann? Kyle? Well, Tricia's out. Let's see. Jim? Ron?
Yes.
Tommy?
Yes.
And Patrice?
Aye.
So the ayes have it. Congratulations, Kyle. So the next office is the vice chair. I'd like to make a motion to nominate Tommy Willis.
Second the motion.
Okay. Ann?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Tricia's out. Let's see. Jim?
Yes.
Ron?
Aye.
Tommy? All right, and Patrice?
Aye.
Okay.
So it sounds like the ayes have it.
Yes.
Congratulations, Tommy. Thank you for your service. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from November 10th, 2021. I believe everybody's received a copy and had a chance to review them. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Who was that? Ron. And who was second?
So we have a motion and a second.
All right, Ann?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Tricia's out. Jim?
Yes.
Ron?
Aye.
Tommy? And Patrice?
Aye.
All right.
So the minutes are approved. So this is a new case, I believe. Is that right? No, there's no new cases.
It is a new case. There was a typo there. I see I made now. So.
This is a new case.
Mm-hmm.
So, new cases, next item, case number BOAB 2022-00001. It's the appeal of Stephen Stefanik, Superintendent Harding Independence Charter School from a decision of the Code Council for noncompliance with Chapter 4, Section 423.4, supplement of the International Building Code 2015, as adopted by the City of Oklahoma City pertaining to the requirement for storm shelters for 3232 Northwest 65th Street. Scott, you want to give us the statement?
Yeah, I may have a few of these packets printed out incorrectly. Did I print out the old one? Okay. Yeah, I believe so. Everybody just make sure you're watching the presentation. I think I must have printed out the wrong paper form, but okay. There we go. Yeah, so staff report. Yeah, so the appeal of Stephen Stefanik, Superintendent, from a decision of the Code Official of noncompliance with Chapter 4, Section 423.4, the supplement to the IBC 2015 as adopted by Oklahoma City pertaining to storm shelters for, of course, 3232 Northwest 65th. The building code, this involves a request for variance to the following requirements listed below. The first one there, of course, is the supplement to the IBC, section 423.4, which states all new buildings and structures incorporating an educational occupancy shall have a safe room with an occupancy load equivalent to or greater than the number of students and faculty the building or structure is designed for. The exceptions, of course, Group E daycares, Group E occupancies accessory to religious worship, and buildings meeting the requirements of shelter design for the ICC 500. The next section, the building official, this is under section 108.1 general. The building official is authorized to issue a permit for temporary structures and temporary uses. Such permits shall be limited as to a time of service, but shall not be permitted for more than 180 days. The building official is authorized to grant extensions for demonstrated cause. Next section here is section 108.4, termination of approval. The building official is authorized to terminate such permit for temporary structure or use and to order the temporary structure or use to be discontinued. The next one there, of course, is our table. This comes into play as well. This is the maximum floor area allowance per occupant. This is going to be for a classroom is 20 square feet net for the classrooms that they're installing. The next section here is ICC 500, the 2014, section 501.11. Occupant density. The minimum required shelter floor area per occupant shall be determined in accordance with table 501.11. And this section, the number of standing, seating, wheelchair, and bedridden spaces should be determined based upon the needs of the shelter determined by the applicable authority having jurisdiction and the designer. So, of course, we have our table there. The figures in question will be the standing or seated square footage of 5 square feet per individual required for tornado shelters. The next section below there, wheelchair spaces come into play as well. Each storm shelter shall be sized to accommodate a minimum of 1 wheelchair space for every 200 shelter occupants or portion thereof. So the applicant statement, would you wish me to read that, or?
No, I don't think you need to. I think we'll ask the applicant to come up and see if it's good. Is the applicant here? Would you mind coming up to the podium there and state your name and address for the record, and then tell us a little bit about your case, please?
I didn't hear you on the second part.
If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, and then if you would tell us about your case, please.
Absolutely. I'm Steven Stefanik. I represent Harding Independence Charter District and the 900 families we serve in Oklahoma City. Beside me is our legal counsel, as well as a board member and the principal of this particular middle school. I do want to thank you for your time. I know being public servants, as I am, and our board members, the work you do, that's not usually appreciated, so thank you for that and for the time here today. I do want to go over a few things and request for this board to give us a extension waiver on the ordinance in play today regarding a safe room, and go over some particular things that happened in the last 6 months to give you some foreplay of some incidents that may have not put us in the situation as we are in today. So the first part of it is a little background. Again, superintendent of Harding Independence, which represents Harding Charter Preparatory High School and Independence Charter Middle School. This particular case is about the middle school at Northwest 65th Street. And we partnered with the city of Oklahoma City, more with Oklahoma City Public Schools, and decided to align with their pathway to greatness. You may remember that plan a few years ago, to change our middle school to serve 5th through 8th grade instead of 6th through 8th, to make sure families had the same amount of options when they transition from elementary to middle school. And so this has been a long process. We understood that our current facility was impossible to house a new grade level, so we had to do a temporary prefabricated structure, which is what's in play today. So our prefabricated structure is about 10 feet away from the current facility, and construction has started after conversations with Scott Wise and his team that we'll talk about in a second. That process began on January 25th when we submitted an original building permit to the city of Oklahoma City, and obviously asking for any open ticket items we need to complete for that project, so we are ready for school in August. Currently, we have 80 families approximately ready for 5th grade, and was under impression of this building being complete. You'll see that on February 15th, the timeline that we received the final report from the City of Oklahoma City staff, authored by Mike Wilson, Jonathan Evans, and Gabriel Howard, telling us all the ordinances that need to be in play. And you'll notice on that city document that there's no reference of this particular ordinance regarding a safe room, meaning that we're not against. I understand what the ordinance is for. I'm an educator. Safety is a priority for me, but it's really hard to know what all the ordinance of the city. That's not really our forte. We're doing the best we can with the guidance that we're provided with the city. So there's no establishment there. During that previous time, we developed a plan to reach and close all those ticket items, obviously not the one in play today because it was unaware. The next time you'll see that we were notified in email by Gabriel Howard on June 15th, 4 months later, when he actually was about to give us the building permit. And you'll see in the email that he states, I wasn't aware of this ordinance, but I was just told by our supervisor, I believe that's Mr. Wise, of this ordinance. And that put us in a little pickle. In fact, I'll tell you that day, in fact, my baby boy was born. Luckily, I was at home with COVID, and I could deal with this problem, but I was not with my wife and my new boy. But that's okay. Things moved on. Things are great. They're all healthy. I think that's what everyone matters. And we understand the ordinance from there, but there was a lot of questions. Conversation with Scott occurred, with Craig, with the mayor, just trying to figure out what is this ordinance, what do we need to accomplish, how do we accomplish this in less than 2 months of school. And that was the problem with the current statement. You'll see in number 3 on June 16th, a telephone call was made to Gabriel Howard to learn more about this last-minute notice. And later on, it was recommended to speak with Scott Wise to request a waiver. On Scott 17th, Scott and Rick had a phone call with me and did allow us to begin construction on the contingency that all those closed items were good to go. However, we would not be able to have an occupancy of certificate for August. So right away, you can imagine June 18th, or actually June 17th, I was already on the hunt for how do we accomplish this project. And being a public school servant and have to be a steward to public dollars, how do I accurately ensure that we are getting the best product for the best price in the adequate amount of time due to competitive bidding acts and all those other requirements for school districts. The next one, you'll see that I reached out to 9 vendors that had the capability to do, at the time, we've learned a little bit about the ordinance, of more requirements at the time of what could be accomplished and who could finish this project by August 10th, the first day of school. And one of those 9 vendors could accomplish such, and that was Oz. You may know Oz on the south side, storm shelters. There is a challenge with their storm shelters, though, because the ones that they could deliver by August were a total of 25 square feet each, meaning that I would have to approximately buy 21 of these structures. I want you to think about a school system a little bit. We have approximately only 25 teachers, so these 100 new students, or 80, but it will be 100 hopefully. These 80 new students will be in 21 separate storm shelters when we have 3 other students that need to be watched with adults. That scares me. To put 5 little 5th graders in a storm shelter and expect them to keep that locked and safe at those times. So that's not really a proper or safe, the purpose of this being a safe avenue. I think it's even more of a hazard. In addition, these are not able to be locked on the outside. As you may know, to Northwest 65th Street, there is a homeless population. I am afraid that having a commercial 21 small shelters with a toilet in place that can only be locked from the inside may be a cause for not only a student safety concern, but also just a community safety concern. So quickly, we went a different direction. I was just notified a few days ago, so this is new information you don't have, that our construction manager is already working with Marcia Gallant, who actually created the FEMA standard codes in the state of Oklahoma. So we make sure we follow all the exact FEMA guidelines. And we're already in consulting with Allen Consulting Engineers, Heath McGee, the mechanical engineer to ensure we get the project correct. But again, the issue is we will not be able to complete this project by the first day of school due to not knowing 4 months after the original permit request. And so our request today is for you to give us not a waiver out of the ordinance. We understand the importance of it. We want an extension waiver so we can do the project right. So we are asking for a waiver until December 31st for a full semester. We're hoping that we will get that done sooner. The sooner the better for us to do a proper competitive bidding act to make sure we are not price gouged from companies. Oz is not being very favorable on their pricing due to they know the time frame. And then lastly, to make sure that we have school for these kids. And we did make a plan, you'll see in your packet, that is comparable to the other 300 students. There's a space that is safe for those 100 students for that few months for displacement that is 10 feet away, entrance into the building for them. And then the last part I want to share, I wasn't aware of this until today, but it does say in the ordinance that you are allowed to give an extension for 180 days. We're asking for less than that. We just want time this semester so we can get it done before the spring when we know that tornado season is more impactful in the state of Oklahoma. So I'll be more than welcome to answer any questions or anything from you all.
So do you foresee, I'm an architect, and by December 31st is a pretty tight timeline for what you're trying to accomplish. Was there any specific reason you picked the 31st? Just because it was the end of the semester, maybe?
That, and we wanted to be fair, so I took it as it was a 4-month delay from the city to inform us of this. So it'd be unreasonable to ask for more than that, right? 4-month mistake, grant us the 4 months. That was essentially where it was. I think we can accomplish it. We're doing a whole prefabricated building in less time, right? That project couldn't start till the permit waiver was provided in June, and that will be done in August 3rd. We're already starting that process with the safe room. Not as complicated as long as you follow the FEMA guidelines, right? So I think we'll be able to accomplish that quickly. The one part I did forget to mention is we lease this property. Charter schools, you may not or may be aware that most of the time they seek malls or shopping centers, or even Oklahoma City School closes a school building and we take them over. So we lease it. So part of the process is I need to work with the Oklahoma City Public Schools and make sure this is a permanent safe room, so it's going to impact their property. So they need to have input on where and what kind of facility they want. And they may go bigger. They may say, do this property, but now we want to expand the whole gym for all the kids. They have approved us to move forward with the safe room. They just want in a few next weeks or month where we want to put it, so they can approve that as well.
So Scott, the reason I asked was to avoid making them come back before the board on January 1 because of an expiration of the extension. So perhaps we can kind of work out a way that it'll dovetail in with when it's going to be complete. Maybe if they have under contract and they've already made payments towards the construction or something like that, maybe we can figure a way to word it so that they, with an ultimate, with an ultimate. Yeah. We would definitely want to try to make sure there's an ultimate timeline, but, I think to avoid you having to come again before the board, I think it might make sense just to go ahead and give, if you're already under contract and you've already got, concrete in the ground, you're making payments and things like that. Yeah. Maybe at that point we just say, Mike's sitting right there. I don't know if the fire marshal has any objection to something like that. But
Of course, we always have something to say. Again, it is not correct to characterize that the fire department didn't tell them. Our review of building permits is limited to the site plan, and we're looking at access and hydrant locations, not looking at occupant loads, egress, all that kind of stuff is done by plan review. And I think the other name that was given was our utility person, because they had listed approval on there too. But they were just looking at utilities, not the interior. Our concern only, honestly, obviously tornado season is in the spring through the summer. We're about at the end of it now anyway. And from what I'm reading, it looked like the code requirement would be about 1,135 square foot storm shelter, or combination of rooms that equal that much. And part of the request talked about reducing that, and I don't know if that's still part of the request or not, but that part lowered it to 717. Obviously, you might be able to pack more people in that space, but that's what those are listed as for occupant loads in a tornado situation, is one person for every 5 square feet. Obviously, the issue also for any school is the protection of all the students, not just what they're building now, but that's all that the code addresses, is what they're building now, not the existing building. So if, on our end of things, if it were the appropriate size and it was going to be done before spring, before probably March is when it kind of kicks off. It really starts in April, but March, we still have some weather events. If we can get it installed by then, we feel that would be appropriate because of the time of year that we're in right now. Thanks.
If I may say one thing real quick also, just, an initial code item, to make sure everyone's aware. If, Steve, the applicants here were to put out numerous shelters. The code also requires the restroom within the shelter itself.
Yeah.
So you also have that conundrum. If you did provide 21, well, where does this restroom go? You wouldn't be able to put it in each one. It would so
Yeah.
just make sure everyone's aware of that.
Yeah, I want to be clear, that's not an option for us. Supervision doesn't work that way for kids, especially for 10-year-olds. Our option is one, whatever code requirement size. The 3 foot kind of request was sort of me learning on June 17th. What is this? These are 10-year-olds. Can it be a smaller code? If it's 5 feet per person, we're going to abide by that. But that was June when it was just a rush trying to learn everything obviously I had a baby at the same time, so just trying to rush to figure things out. So apologize for that confusion back then.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with Mike with the going from 5 to 3. My background, I'm a fire protection engineer, so we study a lot of people movement, and we can do modeling on people movement. And I don't feel comfortable going that low, even though they are children.
Yeah.
When you start looking at the footprint of a child, both that's based on shoulder width and size, there's not a lot of difference in footprint when you're talking from an adult to a child.
Sure.
So maybe a couple of inches in shoulder width. So, that's a pretty big reduction in, and it's what we call is packing is what you would be doing. You'd be packing the people into a space. And I'm just not too sure that you can get that many kids into that small of a place that fast, because, you have to get them in quick, and you're having to, get them really tight together. So I think by that, I would recommend no reduction in size, just based on what we know, unless you wanted to provide some sort of model that shows, if you want to hire, say, I would consider a professional engineer that did a study that says, we think this could work based on these reasons, not just because children are smaller. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
we plan to do 5 feet. That was just original at the time. Our engineer we're working with knows those FEMA guidelines for commercial graded safe rooms. So that is our plan.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. They are already complete.
That were open are closed now?
Yes, ma'am.
And I went out and visited the site, and I was looking at are you planning on putting a storm shelter on the back of the building? I
Well-
saw some work there being done. Or are you planning a safe room in a renovation of the facility that you have now?
Good question. There's a lot of discussion still happening. Where you were looking at in particular is where the actual prefabricated building is going, because we got the permit to start that process. It's still in question where the safe room will go based on the engineering and architect's guidelines and Oklahoma City Public Schools request. The only request Oklahoma City Public Schools provided to us is they would request a above-ground safe room. We are not extending on their building. We're going to build a safe room just for this prefabricated building because the ordinance states for any new construction or new structure.
Have you looked at the mobile storm shelters that are available?
We have. I haven't seen one that will hold a large amount of students. If there's more guidance on that, I'll be, or people, I say students, but people. If there's guidance on that, I'd be more than welcome to hear that.
I know I looked at U.S. tornado shelters, which are 8 by 20 mobile storm shelters that can be moved onto a property and tied down.
So that would be 200 square feet each, right? 8 by 20, no, 1,600. And it was 1,100 was the requirement, I think he said. I'd be glad
It'll take 10 of them.
I'd be glad to meet with you afterwards and get that resource.
Well, just doing some internet Googling, and they're called community or mobile tornado shelters that are rated in the IBC 500
Okay.
and everything.
That's
So,
great feedback.
okay.
I think I've had to look up shelters for large groups too, and it seemed to me that the same companies that are making the shelters that you can buy at a place like Home Depot also make larger ones. I think they're pre-engineered in terms of, if you go from like 50 to 100 to 200 people, I think they're kind of pre-engineered in that respect. But again, and they just auger down. They use augers just to hold them down so you can put them on the parking lot. I don't know if that might help you or not, but.
That'd be great. Right now, we are under the presence that there is no such thing as a mobile in certain sizes. It had to be permanent, but if there's options, I'm going to
Well, I'm sure
research
the ones I looked at were FEMA rated, and I'll be glad to, if you want to exchange, I might be able to find that website again and send it to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
One more question. What is the size of the temporary building you're proposing?
I believe it's right over 8,000 square feet. It's 6
So-
classrooms. I'm sorry?
6 class?
There's 6 classrooms in the prefabricated building and 2 restrooms.
Okay, and the size?
Of each room,
Well, no, I mean the total size of it's 8,000 square feet?
about 8,000
Okay.
square feet. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Anybody else care to say anything, Mike? Any?
Oh, I was wrong.
We really don't have anything else. If the size is not an issue for them, we do not have a problem, like I say, to get it installed and time to get it.
Kyle, did he say that they could get it done by December 31st?
That's what they're saying.
They were asking for an extension till the
31st? Well, I think it should be done. I think it could be done easily.
approval from the school yet.
Yeah.
You have to go to the school board, right, first, or the school to get everything approved?
For the safe room, yes. Once I develop a plan for it, the board will have to approve a budget to purchase it, yes. But they are
And
aware.
meet once a month?
They meet once a month, or we can schedule any special or emergency meeting. Due to this as being a safety regard, we can schedule a emergency meeting at any time.
And then you're gonna go out for bids?
Yes, sir.
To the 2 or 3,
Yes, sir.
and then that'll take another couple of weeks probably, and by the time you get that back, then finalize everything. I mean, I agree that it should be maybe extended to the 1st of February.
We would welcome any extension.
So, if that's the case, I'll make a motion, if there's no other discussion, that we approve the extension to February the 1st of 2023, and that we do stick with the 5 square foot per person as per the code.
Now, could I also mention, you mentioned you needed the public school board approval, of course. Currently, we have issued your classrooms with a hold on the CO, pending the storm shelters. Now, you're going to get the extension, of course. Would the board see fit maybe to place a contingency on the CO pending that school board approval? Would that be reasonable?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, I just need something on my
Well,
side
that-
to prove that we have it.
There's some agenda or minutes that they approved it.
And
Absolutely.
that would be a temporary CO or extension on the, they were already granted a CO, did you say?
No, they weren't given a CO. They were just issued for construction. The CO is going to be held for the storm shelter. But what I'm saying is if you guys allow the extension, I'd like to at least get the approval from the school board before we issue the CO on the school. That way we have something on our side to put on record.
And the extension would only be for the storm shelter as far as the CO goes. Everything else
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Would
Yes,
need to
I
be-
see what you're saying now, yes.
would need to be done.
Yeah.
And it's just the storm shelter that would be the extension of the temporary occupancy or whatever it's
I
going to
mean,
be.
either that or, like I said, yes. If you wish to hold the CO for the structure full temporary until the storm shelter's been completed, either way.
I mean, I'd rather the CO be,
Temporary occupancy, because they need to occupy.
right,
Because the school is a second.
Students come August 10th, but August
August
2nd is when
10th,
we
yeah.
start.
So they would need an occupancy to start operating the school.
right.
So whether it's a temporary or permanent, as long as we have this condition that storm shelter be installed.
Right.
That would be enforcement issue.
Issue after it. All right.
So the motion should essentially be something like, we want to extend the time on the temporary CO or the CO, whichever you issue, to February 1st.
Yeah, it would allow the temporary CO on the classrooms, so long as we had the public school system approval, and the extension for the temporary CO would go to February 1st, as you've already mentioned.
Okay,
That makes sense.
so that's our motion.
Sounds like my school board sometimes.
So we have a motion.
Okay, who's the second?
I'll second the motion.
Ron had
Yeah.
the motion, Tommy the second.
Okay. All right. Ann? Kyle?
Aye.
Tricia? Out. Jim? Ron? Tommy? And Patrice? All right, motion passes.
Your motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
So, back to the agenda. That, we don't, that covers everything we're going to cover today, right, Scott?
Correct.
Any new business? No? So, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Ron? Or Jim, sorry.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.